Good evening and welcome to a new edition of To The Point. This evening we'll be delving into quite an issue which captured quite a lot of headlines, which is the introductory sessions or the opening sessions of the 2016 Egyptian Parliament. With us this evening to shed light on this issue is Dr. Mona Makram Abeid, who is a former parliamentarian and she's a professor of political science. A pleasure as usual to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
This evening is engineer طارق Malash, who is a member of the Egyptian-Malaysian Business Council, among so many different other hats, a leading business professional here in Egypt. A pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, well, the good news, we completed the third and final road of our leg of our roadmap. This is the good news. The introductory sessions of the Parliament are met with quite, or maybe some concern relating to the differences we seem to be hearing by some members. I mean, some are adamant on creating quite a stir. And the issue is this stir just at the beginning, or will this be the way they will conduct the business, taking into account that has started ticking, I believe, and they have 2 weeks to pass over 300 legislations. Dr. Mona.
What can I tell you about yesterday? We stayed glued on television until midnight. I stayed until midnight, others stayed till 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm not very surprised. First of all, the array of people who have, participated in this election without any ideology, without any program, without anything, particularly the coalition list of For the Love of. I think that they are the ones most responsible for what is happening. Why? Because, first of all, it was a haphazard coalition of people who don't have anything in common except that they love Sisi, which is good. Do love Sisi also. I mean, they're not the only ones. So they gave the impression to the electors that they were state-backed. And now what we find is a lot of analysts who say they were not only state-backed, but they were backed and chosen by the state apparatus, the security apparatus. So this is not very good. And I'm not saying things out of my mind. I'm saying things that were written in a government paper called the Daily Mail. So this is what people are discussing now. How will they be able to... They talked about themselves, about the majority. This is not a majority. A list cannot be a majority. Majority needs a party that has an ideology, that has common goals, etc. But this, as I said, is... a mix, nice mix if you want. Some of them are very good, but there's so few. They're to be counted, I think, on the fingers of one hand and maybe two, but that's about all. So people are concerned. Second, what we saw yesterday is that there are a lot of people who are against January 21st revolution. This is a counter-revolution attitude that will upset a lot of people, because there are...
But there's only one parliamentarian that came out loud and said this.
Yes, but others who have agreed, and we know that many of the people who ran with the NDP are not very much in favor, and they are about 80. They gained about 80 seats. So it's a bit concerning, this, but I guess the government or the leadership knows what they're doing, and they will put some order into it. We'll see this in the legislation, we'll see this in the alliances that will be formed for the different, laws that will be discussed. That's why I don't think that this particular coalition will be sustainable for very long.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I think this was a show, and I've seen the very individualistic behavior of the members of the Parliament, the newly elected members, and they were addressing their own constituency, trying to show and display their identity. I'm not concerned about this, but it also, they have forgotten that all this behavior will be assessed, evaluated by the people who elected them and the Egyptians as such. And I think nobody will pass judgment, in my mind, right now until the real tests, when they have to go through the legislations and all the issues that they have to address. And then what will be very important, in my mind, there's to be on the priority of the issues to be dealt with, because this is where there will be disagreement. And the government will be the instrument to direct the priorities that need to be addressed. They are sitting in this chamber, and they're supposed to assist the government in running the country and in legislating what needs to be done. So it is what I care for very much at this stage is the interaction between the government and the chamber, because it will be then that all the issue of coalition and all the issue of alliances will be displayed. And
but when you say the government is supposed to direct the priorities,
yes.
According to the Constitution, it's the other way around, that the Parliament is supposed to be not only directing the government, but even the presidency. I mean, this Constitution gives a lot of weight to the Parliament.
Yes, I've only said the issues. The executive power, in my mind, I'm not an expert in this, but I understand that the government has pressing issues to be dealt with through the Parliament.
Yes.
And they are the ones that know perfectly
they were
well.
presenting even the program.
Exactly, presenting the program. But I deem the ones who are interfacing with the public and with all the issues that affect the citizens is the government. They have to tell them what's more pressing than other issues. And this is where I think if there will be a cooperation, or at least a sort of entente between them, it will be productive. But I agree, I concur with your view that those are very loose alliances, and they can definitely forget about it if should their own interest come against it. We don't have, or at least we had before, good traditions of parliamentary institutions, but from what we've seen yesterday, the reflection I had with myself was they've forgotten everything. They don't seem to take seriously the assignment that were given to them by the people. That's the real
they don't understand the magnitude of the scope of work?
Yes, no, I don't think it's like anybody student getting into the first grade. For me, this was a first grade, like first year minister. I saw ministers' first year behavior is so much different from the fourth of the fifth. In this respect, I am hopeful that the way the debates will be managed will show us really, we people or the specialists will see how they contribute to the improvement of our lives.
Do you think that the way the parliament will be working, how the parties will be interacting, will this lead to maybe a funneling down of the different parties? I mean, we have over 100 parties, I believe, or maybe nearly 100 parties. Once they start actually working, will some disappear? Will some merge? Will we become more politically mature, maybe, in our views? Because this is what we were accused of, that maybe we still lack, due to maybe the oppression in views that we've lived through for tens of years, we don't have this political maturity yet.
First of all, we can't speak about the 100 parties because they're not represented in parliaments. They're about, I don't know, 10 maybe that are represented. But you feel that Egypt is undergoing its teething stage, you know, like a baby who's making teeth. Teething stage in democracy. So what you say has, you know, some weight, because we say we cannot judge from the first session. The first session is chaotic, is unruly, and as you saw, the Speaker of Parliament tried to show his authority to control this unruly body. He's going to have quite a job to do.
Yes.
But as he is a constitutional lawyer, I expect that he will be able to manage it properly. But what concerns me is, in some ways, you don't feel that there is anything new. It's a return to the past. It's a return to people who want to monopolize the whole actions of Parliament. But the difference is that this time they are not a party, they are a coalition. And a coalition is not a parliamentary group, is not a party as such, since it has no ideology, it has no common goals.
Do we have strong parties?
No, but this is another point.
This is for you to have a strong representation, you need a strong party.
Yeah, right, I know. The parties are weak, we have no opposition, the Islamists have disappeared. I mean, this whole thing is new, if you want, but at the same time, you feel that this is a return to the past with nothing, the regime has nothing fundamental to fear from this parliament. I mean, this parliament, it will not affect any major change either in the foreign policy issues or in the domestic issues. So, there is no NDP to organize. At least before you had a majority party, you had a whip, whether he was called Kamal al-Shazli or he was called Ahmed Aiz. These were parliamentarians who had a background. But here you have a list that is directed by somebody who has no political background or parliamentary background. And that's why just to have a grab of domination is very reminiscent of our last parliament in 2012.
But you do have members of parliament who are politicians.
Yes, they are old members of parliament. I would say that most of them are not in the coalition. They are outside. You have some good members. For instance, I was very unhappy that Ala Abdel didn't win the deputy chairmanship. But, you know, what worked against him is that he is in the coalition. They can't have the three people, members of the coalition.
The same coalition.
I mean, exactly.
Yes.
But I'm sure that had it been otherwise, he would have won. I'm very happy for Wahdan, who represents, who is the candidate of the Wafd Party. And I think the Wafd Party has done, has achieved, you know, with everything, the dissensions that are within the party, with the accusations that are against the head of the party and all this, and they managed to get to be the third and to get a relatively good number of seats, and they are third. So I'm very glad they didn't join the coalition. I'm very glad for the Free Egyptians who have gained 65 seats. I think they have done an excellent job. They could have won, you know, at least 100 seats, but I think they were stopped in some way that they could not control. But they are presenting a new aspect of what we would like to see in political parties. That is, they are doing some legwork all over Egypt. They go round in the governorates. They are known. They're opening headquarters there, and so on. I mean, they're doing party work, and then they're working on the laws, something that the others didn't. They're working on, and they refuse to run for what they call leading positions. When I was in parliament, this was not leading positions. We had Dr. Fathi Sroor, who was acclaimed every time, acclaimed even by the opposition, because he was an excellent Speaker of Parliament.
Yes.
As for the others, the deputies, we never had this rigmarole that we saw yesterday, hours and hours and hours.
Struggle for power.
No, hours and hours to elect and to go again and for the oath. I mean, this was absolutely.
Let's get into engineer Tara into this. How do you view?
Well, I would like to say a few things when it comes to this. First of all, the Egyptians who have gone through the two revolutions and this, I believe that they have become more conscious of what needs to be achieved by politicians.
Definitely.
I can tell you, and I see how this consciousness have become terribly acute with the youth. One of the things we should not forget at all is the reaction of the youth. Dr. Abid said that we see the same thing recurring. I don't think the Egyptians will allow this, in the sense that the people who represent them now must realize that the bar of demands have gone high, and I think if they are going to prove that they will make a difference in this country, they have to address the issues that have really hurted them. I represent, or I am part of a community, the business community. I know how urgent and imperative it is to work on the legislations that enables the business community to grow and to hire people and to really contribute to the welfare of the country. This needs considerable reforms in a few laws. This is what will be put to the test. If you allow me, I'd like to go back to the issue of priority. We have two things most essential: the vision of where we want to have the country, and the priority, and the resources. The third one is, of course, we don't have unlimited resources. I want to see that this parliament or this parliament would really have the vision of helping the country taking off again. I'd like to see that there is an agreement between the government and this chamber on what are the priorities of the country. And because
what do you think are the priorities? Sorry,
the priorities, that's a very good thing.
Yeah.
For me, the greatest priority is to look at the regional development, the reform the government's administrative apparatus through the legislations. This is the second most important thing in my mind. If we have this in place, if those two things are in place, I can assure you, the investments, the overseas investment, we will shape our country. We have so many, natural resources, and we have geography on our side, and we have a great country. It is those components that need to be addressed. The government today, with the presence of the parliament, cannot work alone. It is the reformation of the government's handling of the interest of the country. And when I talk business, I talk about the workers, the development, the regional development, and this is in my. Of course, I did not mention security. Security is the element to be addressed, and this is being taken care of, and it has improved. For me, it is how we interact with the parties or the players that would contribute to an economic growth and a sustainable economical growth in the country. I have always felt that the people sitting, I respect very much people sitting in the government seats. They know what needs to be done, but sometimes they can't do what needs to be done because of so many other constraints, and we've heard so many times about the lack of political courage in taking decisions, and this has hampered so many opportunities that were not used.
To me, the main issue is corruption. This, if we can do 50% of fighting corruption that has inserted itself in all the institutions. Today, it is
how can you fight?
The main institution is corruption.
How can you fight corruption?
No,
because
you
this
can.
Is an issue,
you can. I mean,
how?
You can't remove corruption entirely, but you can diminish the effects of corruption.
I agree.
And,
how?
And what you said about the investors not come unless there is a strict law of respecting the state of law.
Correct.
Of being accountable, of being transparent, and so on. And this is what is called good governance. Something that is lacking totally,
that is true.
Lacking from the vision of the decision makers, unfortunately. And I don't think that this parliament will be able to impose this kind of view on, or to serve as a check on the executive. This is what we're scared of, because
It cannot monitor the performance of the government?
Many people have seen it as a rubber stamp, really, for the executive. We want them to come out with new ideas, creative ideas, with the tools.
But there are members of the parliament that were very much outspoken against some of the government's policies. I mean,
absolutely.
For example,
this young man, whom I think is excellent, Haytham Al-Hariri, who is the son
there are
of,
a few. Passant Fahmy was against some of the decisions by the government in the economic portfolio, for example.
Yes, it's subject to debate. I concur with you, definitely. I like that you mentioned, but I am interfacing with other issues where I have discovered that equally important as the corruption is the waste. We are poor, we have a lot of resources, but the financial resources, there is a lot of so many things that we do. We do not take care of mismanagement because of mismanagement. Corruption is actually my perception of when I talk about the government's administrative apparatus and to change it through legislation is to address the issue of corruption, because you give too much power to the state employees, the civil servant, and they are the ones, when they see an opportunity, each civil servant in certain positions, they perceive themselves as owner of the place. They are not employees of the government, but they are owners. As long as they are there, they decide they can, corruption is a very good
That's why we said there must be the respect of the state of law. It has to apply to the highest authority, to the lowest one. Once it is done, look, I've been to Hong Kong. Hong Kong was one of the most corrupt countries 20 years ago. Today it is third on the list of transparency, of accountability. Why? Because they have gone after it very seriously. They had a committee that was accountable to the president. And then they had certain laws where you protect the people who come and
invest.
Not invest. They come and tell you about the corruptors, because they don't want to be, the informers.
That's
exactly.
I understand.
So there are certain laws that protect them.
Definitely.
So they are encouraged to do so, because they know that they are affected by the corruption. And they know that they could be affected if they know who is denouncing them. So corruption can be reduced. It can not be completely eliminated. It exists in every state. It exists in everywhere, in every democracy.
Exactly.
We've seen all the scandals, but there are watchdogs.
In Egypt, how can you eliminate it? Because you said you have the mechanism.
I have interfaced with situation. I know where things can be. For instance, when you go to any government authority and you need something, sometimes even your own right, you have to really reach an agreement to get it. I mean, one of the things that the previous, the government during Dr. Ahmed Nazif has instituted is to reduce the interface between the government, the civil servant and the citizen by automizing things. Today, in many of the services, if you eliminate this kind of opportunity,
interface.
This is, and I believe in what you say, you have really hit the head of the nail. But in everything, what matters is the answer to one question, is the how. How to do it is the responsibility of the government. We have had a roadmap. They have to do it piecemeal. As you said, reducing. So you accept it cannot be done overnight. It has to be done piecemeal. But again, being a guy of the field, I really know that my resources are limited, but my priority should be clear. So all the work that should be done by the government in order to address the issue that you so well described is to really devise a plan. They have to look at where is the government exposed to corruption. What I think has to be done very urgently is the interface between the governmental authority and the investors.
This is
Egyptian, foreigners.
This is
Arabs.
The job of who? Who looks into it?
This
The government or the
of
parliament?
the government is the administrator.
So the government has to design this formula.
The government has to design, they have to go down, see where people suffer from. People know, but you have to take into account that whoever benefits from the status quo fights against the changes that you would like to introduce. And I've seen it all too often. For me, I laugh at it. I laugh at it. But it costs me. People have to understand that time is money. And
the government will be presenting a program to Parliament within the next few days. Do you think this should be included, or would you expect as a citizen to see this in the program? What our vision, our mission, what we will do, KPIs, since we're talking about being a scientific government, you want something. I want to see a program that's measurable, not just ideas on paper and there is nothing.
And you give them the tools. This is very important.
The tools of the legislation.
Very good.
This is where I remember what.
This is what the Parliament arms me with.
Yeah,
the tools to be able to do the job.
Remember what I mean. There should be a consensus that what comes first is the interest of the country, not the interest of the groups and so on. So they have to have an agreement. It will take more than one parliament.
Will this happen in this Parliament?
It is my hope that the program that will be presented by the government sets the priority that would convince the Parliament that those are the right ones. I would expect the Parliament to discuss those priorities. I can assure you, people who are in responsible places know what needs to be done, but cannot do it with the legislative framework, the frame that exists.
But the people who know are a minority. In Parliament, they are a minority. You must agree with me.
I agree with you because
they are a minority, unfortunately.
Will this be a hampering factor? This is the concern. Because if I may be allowed to say something here, that once you're in office, it's easy to say, I want to get something done. But once you're in office, you really are in the kitchen, so to speak.
On the driver's seat.
Then you realize that maybe what you think needs to be done, you don't have the tools, you don't have, it's not a priority, there are hampering factors. The issue is, if I'm a member of the government and I'm presenting my program to a member in Parliament, will this member in Parliament know information, or is he qualified to judge whether my program is good or not?
You're talking about individuals. Parliament is made out of parties.
But
and that's why there are no parties.
But we don't.
So you won't have.
We have individual
cases. You won't have a vision. You won't have an ideology. You won't have a program. You won't have anything. You will have individuals who will speak, and good individuals and bad individuals. But that's not enough.
Dr. Mona, do we have strong ideologies in Parliament? I mean, let me touch.
You don't have a party.
You are a member, or you come from a family that created one of the strongest parties in Egypt.
Right.
This is the father of parties in Egypt.
Exactly.
Where is the ideology? Where is the Weft presence in Parliament?
But that's what I'm telling you. That the parties are weak, and we have no opposition, and we have no parties. And some people pretend they are the majority. They cannot be a list.
A coalition is not a majority in the thought.
It's not even a bloc. I mean, the only ones who have some weight are, I think, the Free Egyptians.
They have
but
some
they're not enough. And there are too much directed toward business. Sorry to tell you that, but it's true.
There's nothing wrong with business, I hope.
No. But we don't want to have a parliament only dominated by business.
My ladies, all I want to say is that we have to there must be an entente cordiale, like between the French
and the British.
Between the parliament and the government, in order to agree on what to be done.
First, you have to have a vision.
The government is responsible for that. Well, listen, the government is the one...
It's supposed to be presenting.
Exactly.
And if it can't, then tough luck.
You touched upon a very good point. You said that not everybody within this government will understand what the government is coming up with.
And but everybody in this parliament.
And this is where the parliament, and this is where the parties were very essential.
Of course.
They have the apparatus to assess, evaluate,
and present alternatives.
Exactly. But this doesn't exist. But what exists now are in my mind, the imperatives of the responsibilities assigned to each of the players. One is to lead the takeoff of the Egyptian economy and to improve the standard of living of Egyptians. The one responsible on the ground, in the field, is the government.
Yes.
It needs the support.
But it needs the legislation.
Yes, exactly. And this is what there must be an agreement between the government and the parliament in order to make them move ahead, realize their program. And you know, it's a game of give and take. And if they can help each other if they want, if they are united on a goal. I must tell you, I have no belief in any party today in this country that can have an identity strong enough.
Because nobody has supported them. Nobody has encouraged them.
Yes, but
you get a list and you say that this is the list of the president.
Yes.
This is the list that is state-backed. So who can fight against it?
Yeah,
I mean, even if there were people who wanted to have an alternative, like, you know, some of the leftist-leaning people who had very good people in it, like Noor Farahat, who's a constitutionalist, but who has a critical view without being against. But here, what was the dominating theme? Everybody has to think the same way.
But
you have to be in the same block.
If you had...
What is this? Is this a parliament? It's a rubber stamp.
If you had a strong party over the past 5 years, it would have made an imprint with the people. The problem is that all the parties, the old ones and the new ones over the past few years, they have not been trying to build a coalition with the people or reach out to the grassroots. What made the Brotherhood strong?
The grassroots.
The grassroots.
The social services.
And time.
Exactly. And time. But at the same time, in the past 5 years, the political parties were fighting amongst each other within the party.
True.
And we've seen this, and I don't want to keep naming parties, but we've seen it.
Yes.
And amongst each other, and they were not exerting the effort or spending the time to actually introduce their ideology to the people.
And that's time for the election, if you remember. They were fighting over this list of 120. Instead of encouraging the individuals, and again, it's only the Free Egyptians who are intelligent enough not to make a fuss over the list and to encourage their individual candidates.
It's
true that there was a lot of money that was spent, and I don't like this idea very much.
But I think it's everywhere.
Well,
no, not at this level. This was a bit too much.
The way even in the States, you pay for get the people to attend your forest, but even in many other countries. But all I want to say about the number of parties, Spain, when they moved from their dictatorship, they had more parties than we have today.
Yes.
But
eventually
remember, we have... you learn your profession, you learn your skill by going through. Those people, nobody pushed them, they have been brought and they've been elected. They have to become conscious of the task ahead of them.
Trial and error.
I'm afraid...
But there is no time for that.
I'm afraid the government...
This means
the government has a greater role to play.
There is no time. The people need things to be done concretely and now.
I think the government...
now.
Ladies and gentlemen, because we have 15 minutes left and we need to touch on 2 more issues. And maybe one of the pressing issues is the Constitution. There is talk amongst the parliamentary members about revisiting and maybe making amendments to the Constitution.
I am totally against it.
Me too.
First of all, Constitution, you have to try it first, and then to see if there are some deficits in it, we amend it. We do not change it.
True.
The Constitution is not a piece of paper. The Constitution is the country. And we have spent so much time to go through it. There are many items in the Constitution. This is what I'm afraid of, that they will not be able to implement what's in the Constitution. The social rights, the political rights, the economic rights, exactly.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is what we're afraid of, that there will be impediments to that. Not that they want to And I know there are many voices, but you know, this is the obsequiousness of people, because the president once said that it was done, it's like, what is it, do they say, hell is paved with good intentions. So he said something like this, that the constitution was paved with good intentions, but not enough. So they took this as the clue. Then we must change. Then the president must be, you know, elected for life. Then the parliament and the government should not have, you know, all these prerogatives, and so on and so forth. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous.
I don't consider this to be a priority. I hope nobody imposes
exactly.
This
I hope.
And I can
but you will see that they will talk about
yes,
it.
but those could be side voices. But what's most
they're
important,
not for side voices.
I mean, I would be very if the government accepts to embrace that initiative.
Exactly.
That would definitely represent a serious thing,
a serious
because this
setback.
will be a demise
of
so many of the rights that were given to the people.
Absolutely.
And what is great in this constitution, I'm not an expert again, but what the little I have read, have set the bar on the performance of the government much higher than any time.
Absolutely.
And accordingly.
With figures.
With figures, and
which
this
is not done.
Good. And it has given them time to achieve it. All I could say is that if this is change for some back issues, that will definitely be a diversion from what is essential. That would be, and I don't believe that that will be encouraged. This government has to really convince this parliament of the priorities that need to be addressed. Again, is the how.
Okay,
amending the constitution is certainly not a priority.
14 committees have been selected, and maybe I'll ask you quickly to tell me what you think is the #1 priority when it comes to foreign relations. What, in your opinion, is the #1 priority that the parliament should be working on?
First of all, it's not 14 committees. There are 19, and they want to raise them to 24. Because they're going to divide some of the committees, like tourism and information, and culture, they will be divided. Now, for the Committee of Foreign Relations, and as you know, I was in Parliament in the Committee on Foreign Relations, in the Senate in Foreign Relations, and in the WEF Party. So this is my priority, and today I see that Egypt has to take a leading role in the Arab world. Egypt is the heart and the hub of the Arab world. And those who do not recognize it, it must impose it on them, that Egypt is there. Of course, the president has returned us on the international scene when we had disappeared completely.
Yes.
It has returned us on the African scene, which is extremely important. We have neglected Africa for 30 years. Can you imagine? Since Boutros Ghali was Minister of State. Can you imagine?
But he was there was so qualified.
And Ahmed Sidi. Don't forget Ahmed Sidi, because he was going to be the...
You mean Atif Sidi?
Ahmed Sidi was our ambassador in Paris. And
oh yes.
Of course, he was the authority on Africa.
We're talking about long history.
Sorry.
Well, I'm talking about when I was in Parliament. That was not history, it was only 15 years ago. But he was an excellent ambassador, and he took this to heart. So I think that today our main issue is the Africans, and of course our international relations, which are extremely important today. And we do not want to go into emotions. We hate this one and we love this one. This is not, in politics, it doesn't count.
Okay.
So you have to have, where is our interest?
I would like to add, I mean, I cannot
agree
discuss
more.
This as you feel. All I want to say, which I really can somehow extract from the initiatives taken by is that we have to diversify beyond
Absolutely, that's what I said.
I think beyond going to China, India, South America. It is this diversification that will carry weight in our position with the rest of the world. And I think that in the Arab world, geography speaks for us over anybody else. But it is this interaction. I think we have achieved a lot. 2 years because of the interest, the reciprocal interest to unite towards common threats. This has brought many allies almost overnight, and I think this has to continue. And I cannot add anything to what
economics. Maybe I'll take you to your head. The business, the financial and economic.
Well, I think it is the investments law. I think it is
revisiting the investing law that was issued last March.
Yes, and the regulatory chart related to it. I think what needs to be done is to address the government administration of real. I think they've been thinking of real reform, look at all the laws that even dates for a century, even 1.5 centuries. Go through those. Somebody has to really establish the priority.
Do we need all those laws? Because sometimes the amount of laws to get one thing done in itself is a deterrent.
All I want to say beyond this, the laws are one thing. Again, the question is how to implement them. Okay. The how remains. The answer how reflects the skill with which the government is going to make a difference.
Yes.
Is how they do it. And I can assure you, if they really are interested in doing something, if it is prioritized at the highest political level in this country, it can be done, because it will impose a follow-up.
Dr. Mona,
we must not forget the bureaucracy. The red tape here is the barrier in front of the investors.
Yes.
Red tape. This is one thing. Who is responsible for the red tape? The small employees that make you go through I don't know how many doors, and you know more than I do on that.
Interface, but I can tell you, maybe they laugh at me. The people, they say, the English introduced bureaucracy, but the Egyptians perfected it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And maybe it's the amount of laws as well.
And the amount of laws, why not
increase the bureaucracy?
Things? Yes. This is what they were doing.
Definitely.
I just returned from a trip there were plenty of businessmen who were there among the tourists. They said, we want to come, but it is so difficult. But unfortunately, they compare us to Dubai. There is no comparison, of course, to Dubai.
Let's talk about socially, especially when it comes to the women's portfolio. What do you think is the priority?
I think that today the women who are there must be aware of the rights that we have achieved since 1919. We don't want any sliding back, but on the contrary, we want them to gain more. And that is to see about family laws, to see about the women who are really suffering. Not about them, the elite. The elite now, they have the right to divorce and not to divorce. But there are women, the working women, the widows, those who are, you know, who need their pensions and who can't get them and who have to queue, and we want them to take the husband's pension. Women must take the husband's pension if he dies before. There are many things that you can do today for women. But the first thing is to erase the illiteracy of women, because I think that this is the shame.
And illiteracy, generally speaking.
No, on women particularly, because it's much higher among women.
Yes.
It's about 55% among women. And then you want to reduce the population? How? If they don't understand what the pill is, or why should they reduce if they want it for their old age? Again, this comes to medical security. People must have some security. They bring children because of their old age. They want them to be there.
Yes.
So it's a whole culture that has to be changed.
But I can tell you the government is doing quite a few things with the kind of medical umbrella and insurance, and they are really automizing this. So again, they don't need to they will be given a card really with their own profile, and they're really launching this gradually in the country. Yes, there are instances in the government, but again, they need funds. And luckily, they are getting funds from international institutions, donors. Yes, it's been addressed, but it's, as far as I'm concerned, it is the pace at which they are doing it, which is not satisfactory. Yes. But I think this is, I couldn't agree
Women's
more.
awareness and development is the motor for advancement.
That is
Yes.
true.
The motor for advancement.
education.
You cannot. This is what I'm saying. If you don't erase literacy.
If we talk about tourism, and we have a couple of minutes to wrap up, what is a priority for tourism?
Well, the priority is to try to resolve the issue of bringing the Russians back. This is number one, and I think it's the making. And it's really to try to spend more money on campaigns to market Egypt again and try to correct. We have a problem of perception, which will be affected by all the incidents that have taken place.
What about elevating the grading of Egypt as a tourist destination? Because really, we were a country that is blessed with a lot of resources.
It's a service offering.
You offer a tourist an all-inclusive per day?
No, but this is
this is absolutely ridiculous today. But I think that the tourists today must feel that the security has improved in the airports. Airports.
Everywhere.
No, particularly in
yes,
airports.
But it's
because, you know, after the Russian plane, this has really marked people. This is one.
True.
Because the people who were with me on the cruise in Aswan, they didn't speak about security around them, that they were quite secure. But I think that we are not marketing Egypt enough, you know? And we are not using... for instance, I will not put Zahi Hawass aside. I'm sorry. He is an icon. We agree with him, we don't agree, that's another matter. But he, with his hat, is an attraction to tourists. The French hate him.
Okay.
So,
a final...
you know that?
Of course. Of course.
Okay, a final issue, and that is the media.
Yeah.
The watchdog.
You mean you?
Yes, the media.
Well, I mean...
aside from strangling us, what else should be done?
Not really.
You have to have a charter of honor. The code of honor.
A code of honor is number one. But
they have to
I
respect
think it is the quality. I'm involved in the media as well. And I know that at times, no matter what you do, you can... It's only when you are a bit eccentric that you get the attraction.
Viewership and
it is this kind, the viewership, exactly.
How cachet.
Yes, of course, and others, by the way. And I think, but people sometimes, I can assure you that people, when they see that there are programs that really address issues that mean something to them.
Absolutely.
Again, I go back to what you said about the parties. We don't have parties where they discuss and about the main issues. It's the media that has to tell them what matters. And as in the France's and other, I watch all this, when I'm there, it shows what the issues that preoccupy the people. I think this, not the ones that inflames the passion, but really that preoccupies people.
This is the awareness of people on the main issues.
And it educates people.
But you must do it in a pleasant way.
Yes.
I would do it through theater. I would encourage theater.
No, but the language of debate and the language of debate is very important.
And the debate, but it has to come to the level of people.
Yes,
and the cinema has to be elevated.
A French politician said once, there is no debate without a back mind, arrière-pensée. No, and I think we have to really unite against what should make a difference in this. And if the less people, I mean the people who are not good enough, we have to look after them, because the real welfare is the one that really spreads.
Yes.
We have to think of them. And the country will only be built on that.
When the choice will be built on talent and not on nepotism.
I'll wrap the show with those strong words. Lady and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. As usual, a pleasure to have you
we enjoyed it anyway.
With us. And it's not just the government and the parliament. It's also the people, such as yourselves. We all have to really roll our sleeves and work to rebuild our country, because this is the only way.
And not leave the president working on his own.
No. But it has to be everybody, every single individual.
And to really get more and more people engaged from the youth.
Exactly.
I'm very concerned personally about the apathy that I sense in the youth. I'm not an educator, I'm not a teacher, but I think this apathy is a threat if we are not handling it. But that's a side issue.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much.
No, it's not a side issue.
It's a core issue.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your fruitful input. I'd like to thank you. The viewers wish you a very pleasant evening. We'll see you same time next week. Until then, good night.